So good morning. Morning. If you can see me, you can tell me good morning on the chat. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Just tell me a good morning. Let me see the good mornings on the chat. And I know that we are ready to learn today. Okay. All right. All right. Good morning. If my internet is okay, you can tell me. If you can hear me, you can say good morning. You can also share where you're watching the webinar from. Sometimes it's important for me to know where you are. I can see so many of you. Karibuni sana. We're going to start in a minute. Just 1 minute. Sometimes I can see someone telling me we keep time. Sometimes we really try. And then I don't know what happens last minute. You're trying to just connect. Yemen. Oh, okay. Siaya County. All right. Asanteni sana. You can just tell me where you're watching the webinar from. Sometimes it's very encouraging for me. I can see some Sarah from Diani. Thank you. Karibuni sana. Karibuni sana. And if this is your first time, I want to know, I would want to see on the chat you telling me a yes. I always ask that question if this is the first time that you're watching me. Tell me a yes. And if this is your first time, you can subscribe or you can follow us on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and every time we have these webinars, you can always see them. I do a lot of tax trainings on issues with taxation. We also do bookkeeping, internal audits, and audits all around financial management and making sure that you understand and you're able to make better decisions when it comes to your business. So I'm always very, very excited to do these trainings. Today we shall talk about the finance bill, and this is we're going to just take 1 hour, and also I'll touch something more on the budget that was read yesterday, and also I'll talk about a few of the trends when it comes to e-teams and amnesty. I'll touch a bit of issues and make sure that you just know that what is happening. So karibuni sana. I can see first timers. You're most welcome. So with that, you can share the link with somebody. You can share them the code, the meeting code, and tell them to join us as we continue. So let's dive in. If you have a question, of course, you can always ask on the chat. Someone is waiting to answer your question. You can ask us any question, not even what we are talking about. If you have a tax question, audit, and I hope that you've also done your audits. It's about how many days? Today is the 14th. So it's about around 16 days to closure of the calendar year for December 2023. So I'm hoping you've been able to do your return. And if you're not yet able to do that and you'd want some help, I'm also going to talk about it. So let's proceed with the training for today. I hope you can see my screen. So this is the content for the day. I'm going to talk about the finance bill as I talked about it, and the budget and other trends, a bit of them. And as we know, and I know that this has been one of the hottest debates that we've been talking about, the finance bill. I felt it was important to just show you how the bill graduates to become an act, and it is effected and it becomes a law. So the Finance Bill 2024 was published and gazetted on 9th May. Actually, it has been a marathon. So there was a first reading that was May 13th. There is public participation. I hope we were able to public participate. And we saw all the people that were able to public participate on the bill to give their views. So when it is read and when it is gazetted, it is supposed to be you to understand it, write your proposal, say this one cannot work, this can work, this is okay, and different views. So they got time to listen. And then there's a session where there's committee review, which is ongoing. So this is where parliamentary committee, likely the budget and appropriation committee, are currently reviewing the bill and make hold of public hearing to gather further feedback. So this is ongoing. So this is June. Is a marathon for the bill because some of the proposals should be effected by 1st of July. And remember, we also had a budget, what was read yesterday, about a week ago. There was something that was released that is called tax policy, national tax policy. So there are so many things that have been happening in this entire month. Especially when it comes to taxes. So after that, we do the second reading and debate, likely to be upcoming week. Voting and that reading, this is where we see sometimes the parliamentarians even spending almost the entire night in parliament trying to vote, to read, to give feedback, because they're in a rush. And then there is a presidential asset. So this is where the president assigns the bill and into act. And this will possibly be happening on 20-something, possibly 26, 27 there. And then 1st July, some of the proposals will be effective. So it's a marathon. Of course, this is something that has been prepared, and it is prepared from the time they are preparing the budget. The budget started process of preparation starts around November, while they are just looking at the issues on how to run the government, the money requirement. And when there are deficits, they try to see where can we get more taxes, and that's a resultant to the finance bill. The finance bill 2024 is supposed to give a collection of 300 to 400 billion, which is supposed to help on the budget. So that is and we saw a budget that is almost 4 trillion. So it requires a lot of funding, and the funding is coming on the taxes. So there are so many stories, and I don't want to be political. So let's understand some of the issues that were raised. So what are some of the issues that are raised on the Finance Bill 2024? So let me share proposed changes in the income tax. We have the motor vehicle 2.5% on the vehicle value. And I know that you have had this before. So the payable is upon on the insurance. When you're going to be paying your insurance, this is a point where you're supposed to be doing this. So a lot of proposals. The first proposal was that we get a capping at 100,000. So the highest is that. We saw yesterday on the bill, on the budget, there was also a proposal that the highest would be 5,000. So by the time the president is assenting to it, we're gonna know the exact place. But at the moment, the 2.5 of the value, what we know is that there will be a ceiling for that. So it's going to, of course, increase the burden on motor vehicle owners. And as we know, we also have the fuel levy and so many others. And also last year for the Finance Act 2023, there was an addition of the advanced tax. Advanced tax. So you can mute kindly. Advanced tax for motor vehicle was increased almost to double. So there's been a lot of issues around the motor vehicle, and I think they are still going on. So my co-host, you can help the person to mute. So we have the withholding tax on goods supplies to public entities at 3% for residents and 5% for non-resident. What does this mean? It means, remember, when you're withholding, when you're supplying goods or services to public entities, these are parastatals, they are the counties. They always do a withholding of 2% for the VAT. Now there's an introduction of the 3% withholding. This is for income tax. So if you know how contractors work, when contractors are doing the construction, there's always a 3% on the contractual works for the income tax. Similar, this is what will be happening. So on top of the 2% that we'll be doing for VAT, there will be 3% for income tax withholding. Know the process that it was published. There was the first reading, there was the public participation, the committee review, which is ongoing. We have the second reading likely to be in the upcoming week. They will be voting, and that reading possibly next week or next week, but one, and then the president is supposed to assent. And he's supposed to do that before June so that it can be effected by 1st of July. So that is a process. Let me not go back there because of time. I've talked about the motor vehicle. I've also talked about the 3% withholding. I hope you are able to understand, especially for companies that are doing supplies to the public entities. Now you know that on top of the 2%, there will be the 3% withholding on your income tax. And this withholding of 3% is an advance payment of corporation tax that at the end of the year, when the auditor will be filing for you corporation tax, there will be some taxes that you have paid in advance. So it is going to be used at that particular point, the same way we do for contractors. So taxation income for digital marketplace platform at 20% for non-resident and 5% for residents. So the digital platforms and the marketplace have always shown a lot of potential. And this also shows that when the finance bill is being prepared, they always look at the places where they can try to capture more money. So there will be a taxation of people who are doing this digital marketplace. And also I think it's also a very wide space because some of us use digital to market, others use content creation. But at the moment, what I can share is that if you invite a content creator to your organization, you're supposed to do them with withholding tax. That is very, very important. Introduction of significant economic presence tax as 30% for non-resident. So this is where the non-resident companies, when they come to our country and they are registered in foreign countries, but they are operating in this country, then if they have a significant economic presence, they can be charged taxes at 30%. Remember, 30% is a resident is a corporation tax rate, and economic presence also will raise a bit of concern to how do you measure the economic presence of this company in the residential entity. This is, of course, trying to protect and addressing the tax avoidance concerns that you're not a resident company, so you're not doing your corporation tax here, but you want to continue doing the business in our country. Minimum top-up tax for resident entities in multinational groups to prevent profit shifting. The same way I've explained the other one. Ensure fair taxation within the multinational corporation structure. So profit shifting is where the resident entity is selling possibly is making a loss or very minimal profit, but the multinational group in another country is making a lot of profit. So this is also issues with the transfer pricing policies. So I think with those two introduction, there will be a significant look for companies. So for you, if you're operating a company that is multinational, or you have a branch in Kenya and your mother company is in another country, I feel with these two introductions, there will be a lot of audits for these companies to just see if they're doing profit shifting, how is their presence, do they have transfer pricing policy. So if you have a company in Kenya and possibly you're selling, for instance, let me give an example. You're selling machinery, your mother country is in China. This is the time to put your books in order, because with this, there will be a lot of checkups on the company, on your company. Deductibility of SHIF for our post-retirement medical funds and affordable housing contribution. So this is in sense, it is helping the employee welfare, retirement planning, and affordable housing. So this is where the employee, remember when you're doing your basic salary, and you put together these benefits, your taxed pay. So it is meaning that before they tax you the pay, they are going to deduct your contribution to this. So the pay as you earn is going to be minimal, so that you're in a position to pay for shift. And remember, there are changes. I'm going to mention on the changes of the shift and the safe and that. So, and the affordable housing levy. So they're just telling you that that portion that you're doing contribution, it will not be charged for pay as you earn. Just reducing the pay as you earn a bit. Investment deduction for spectrum license purchase at 10%. So when you're doing the telecommunication infrastructure, there's a license that you're supposed to do. So the deduction, the investment deduction for the purchase at 10%, just to encourage investment in that area. There's an eco levy for manufacturers and importers will be introduced. So the eco levy is supposed to promote the environmental sustainability. So the moment they collect that eco levy, the money collected will be used for environmental conservation. This mostly will be introduced to people who are doing plastics. So there's a list, an entire list of, especially manufacturers, according to their nature of manufacturing. Especially this has been huge to people who are doing plastics, plastic containers, such. Okay. Imported motorcycle beyond a certain price will be taxed 10% value instead of a flat rate. So there was also a debate on the motorcycle. And remember, we've seen the motorcycle industry being very vibrant. So a certain price, which we don't know, they'll be taxed, there will be an additional taxation, so the tax will be at 10%. And of course, there are motorcycles who are very, very expensive, so this will alter also the cost of that motorcycle. My worry is that the motorcycle that is used for business, that people buy to do business will not be affected on the increase of the taxation. Taxation of interest income from infrastructure bonds for residents. So the infrastructure development, the taxation of interest income from these bonds could be part of a strategy to fund infrastructure development projects. So there is a taxation of the interest income after you get their bonds, especially if you are a resident company. So let me talk a bit about value added tax. So VAT exemption on bread, I guess this is what we've had, so many of us, and these are proposals. So by the time we are getting to the hearing, we've done public participation already. There's the parliament, whatever they are doing, and they are also receiving feedback. And they'll be hearing, there'll be debate. So some of these items might be removed, and I'm hoping that the bread, the VAT on bread will fall in this category. If it doesn't, then the VAT will give a rise to about 10 to 15 shillings per piece of bread. Removal of VAT exemption for financial services such as credit and debit card insurance, money transfer services, foreign exchange, a whole line of financial services. So the financial services are always VAT exempted all over the world, because VAT is a consumer tax, and most of the time the financial services, you find they have excise duty, and sometimes the excise duty is what is affected. It moves from 15 to 20, but now there's an introduction of VAT, 16%. So on top of the excise, and the moment I've also written about excise, I'm going to show you. So the excise is moving from 15% to 20%. On top of the 20%, there will be 16% on that. So this means when you're making your transaction at the bank, if the bank is charging you 100 shilling for that transfer, they're going to add 20% of the excise. That 20% will come to about 120. And then on top of it, they're going to do 16%. So meaning that you're going to pay possibly around 140 shillings or 130 something because of the VAT. So my calculation, if the bank was giving you 100 shillings, was offering, the transaction was worth 100 shillings, that is the money they were charging you for that transaction. There's an additional around 24 shillings to do that transaction. So this is a huge cost, especially for business owner, because business owners, you're always transacting with the bank, you're paying a check, you're doing something, you're transferring something. So this is a huge cost, and it is going to be consumed by you who is getting that service. So for me, this was one of the biggest expense, especially when it comes to this finance bill. So we also have the VAT registration threshold will be increased from 5 million to 8 million. They cited reasons of inflation and so many other things. But I think for me, this is a welcome move that for you now to be registered for VAT, you can now wait until you're at the threshold of 8 million. VAT is very, very, the compliance level of VAT is very expensive. So if that burden is removed from an SME to at least they make at 8 million to be able to absorb the compliance cost, I think this for me was better. And for you who is registered for VAT, even if you're not at 8 million, you cannot be registered. So you still have to stay there. But for a new company, they can wait until they are at 8 million to be able to register for VAT. And remember, when you register for VAT, the also eTIMS comes in. And also eTIMS is for all businesses. By the way, eTIMS is for all businesses, and regardless of how much money you're making. So, but eTIMS when you have VAT, e-TIMS help you in the filing. Exemption of transfer of business as a going concern from VAT. Also, I felt this was okay and it was good. So the moment you're transferring a business as a going concern, you can be exempted from VAT. Remember, most of the time when we are transferring the business, you're selling it to somebody else, you're transferring it to sometimes this business is, you're not transferring it because it is in a good position, you want survival. So if you get that exemption, it can also make sure that the business is able to survive. Limitation of VAT exemption on insurance premium. Some insurance premiums are exempted, so there is an introduction of VAT. And if you check the finance bill 2024, there's a lot of effects on the insurance company and the banks and all the financial services. So there's a lot, because they want to be used to do collection of VAT, of excess duty, to do a lot of collection on behalf of the government. Application of VAT on betting, gaming, and lottery services. So also this is something that I have experienced significant tax changes every year. There's always a change when it comes to betting and gaming. And we've seen also the excise being increased to 20%. So on top of that, there will be now the 16%, meaning, and I don't know for us who do this, meaning that there will be a lot of charge when you're doing such activities. They have seen even if they continue increasing, people are still doing betting and gaming. So they'll still pay the 16%. Removal of VAT exemption in tourism, manufacturing, and construction sectors. So some of the, not everything, some of the exemptions in the tourism, manufacturing, and construction sectors have been proposed to be removed, so that the VAT is being increased. So this will also mean that, especially the manufacturing side, will mean that the cost of manufacturing will go higher, and the products that will be coming to us will be at a higher cost. And I know you followed this debate. These debates, even where we say the cooking oil will be more expensive, it's being expensive because of some such VATs, and also the eco-levy on the plastic container. So a lot of costs items will be expensive because of that. So there is some proposal changes on the excise duty. So telecom services will remain at 15%, for mobile transfer at 12.5% for betting and gaming. The excise, Okay, so most of these institutions, as I mentioned, have seen a significant change on excise duty. So the telecom services will remain at 15%, and the mobile transfer at 12.5%. 20% excise duty on fees charged on digital lenders and bank will be maintained. So I've talked about that, the digital lenders, the bank, the financial services, the 20%. Excise duty on digital services offered by non-resident will be at 20%. So this is to help regulate the tax cross-border digital transactions, to align with the global trends with the country imposing taxes on digital service. So a lot of digital services, a lot of excise. And we've seen, even when you're doing something like Facebook boosting, there's a lot of cost, even VAT on those boosting that we do. So the moment you're doing a boosting of possibly 5,000 or 10,000, you find that the cost, the actual, the cost, those costs, sometimes you even lose 1,000 out of that money on the costing because of this excise and VATs. Excise duty on mobile transfer services will be increased from 15 to 20%. I've mentioned a bit of that. So when we talk about the tax procedures, KRA will be granted powers to enforce eTIMS integration with penalties for non-compliance. So we really talked about eTIMS, and I think this has been one of the greatest debate about eTIMS and enforcement, where there is even a proposal of 2 million penalties if you're not using eTIMS. So the taxpayers and businesses will ensure the system and integrated with eTIMS to avoid penalties and interest. So this is for you as a business owner, or for you who is operating a business, to know that now we are getting to a place where that if KRA comes to your organization, because we still have the revenue service officers that move around, and every business should be on eTIMS. If they come to your organization and they find that you don't have eTIMS, they can be able to charge you a penalty. Most of the time, they will give you a letter for debt enforcement or for offense enforcement, and you go to them. Most of the time, they will raise a charge for you not using eTIMS. They will raise 50,000, 100,000, showing also that they can even raise a bill of $1 million because of that. So make sure that you have eTIMS and the eTIMS is working properly. Sometimes the machine, I know the system is having a challenge, which I'm going to mention also on the tax trends. But you can ensure that your business is operating well, because you don't know when. The bill grants KRA certain exemptions for data protection of law for tax assessment and collection purposes. So when KRA wants to gather data about your organization, there's so many areas that they can be able to do that. So in their system, they have data intelligence, where they can get data from your customers, your suppliers, anywhere. They can be able to they can ask for bank statement. They can request the CBK to provide them banks. So sometimes when we comes to exemption of data protection by law, for that, I think if they do need to ask for that information, they still get a way of getting to get that information. New powers will allow KRA to demand agents deduct unpaid taxes owned by taxpayers. Granting KRA the power to demand agents to deduct unpaid taxes owned by KRA, strengthening tax enforcement mechanism. For me, this is something that has always been there. This is where, if you are unable to pay tax, an agent, so the agent first is the bank, where they send an agency notice to the bank demanding your bank to pay them that tax that you owe. They can go further. They can ask your customers. They can send letters to your customers. Instead of paying you, pay KRA. And this is something that I've seen, especially for contractors. And because you're having a challenge with cash flow, the counties have not been able to pay you. KRA will issue an agency notice to the county, instructing the counties to pay KRA on your behalf. So this is something that have been ongoing, and also the banks. And with that letter, you cannot operate your bank account. You cannot be paid by the county if they have that letter with them. KRA time frame for issuing objection decision will be increased from 60 to 90 days. So when you do an objection, when you get an assessment, this is the place where you've been going through an audit process. And after the audit process, you get an assessment. That assessment, if you don't agree to that assessment, we always do an objection. An objection is supposed to be happening within 30 days. Next July, we'll be talking about tax audits and how to manage that entire process and resolution and tax, how to resolve tax issues. Is a very interesting topic, and I would want you to be there, because what I foresee is that eTIMS and what we are doing is gathering data. So next year we'll be having a lot of audits. So make sure that you understand the audit process so that you can be able to protect your business correctly. So we do the objection within 30 days. The objection decision is supposed to be given out within 60 days. So the extension of 90 days for me, it's good, because sometimes within the 60 days, you cannot be able to do as much. Because remember, some of the cases you took like a whole year to come to a decision, or to agree or disagree, so that KRA can issue an assessment. So sometimes that case that have taken a full year or 2 years, coming to determine it within 60 days becomes a very becomes not easy. Also, when you get an objection decision and you did not like it, you proceed to go to the tribunal. So sometimes with this extension, also making sure that those objections can be determined and be closed at that particular level without graduating to the tribunal and to the ADR. KRA will have powers to refrain from recovering unpaid taxes under certain conditions. Okay, so I've talked about that they can ask for taxes from agents, and I've said the agents can be bank, customers, suppliers. Now they can also recover and pay under certain circumstances. Okay, for me, this one, because I've seen clients who had a lot of tax issues and they don't have cash flow, their business is coming to a collapse. There's always a lot of force on collection. And even if you explain that we are not in a good position. So for me, this one is 50-50. Of course, when the business collapses and they can no longer collect taxes, there's basically nothing they can be able to do. But nobody wishes for a business to close. So that one for me, I think is 50-50, because for them, they're under pressure to collect. The customer is not in a position to provide the taxes. So there is always a pull and push, which is not very good. Weekend and public holidays will be excluded when determining statutory tax law timelines. I think this one, they might not work it out, because when we talk about something like VAT, you're supposed to file by 20th. It's 20th of the following month, which also includes the weekends and public holidays. So that means if we do something like this, then it means next month we'll be filing on 15th, the other one on 18th, the other one. So it's quite not okay. If we talk about the 60 days when it comes to objection and those decisions, possibly there it can work out where you can calculate the 60 days without the weekends and the public holiday. KRA can direct taxpayers to integrate their system with KRA system for real-time data submission. Okay, this is on the extreme side. So if you're having a system, an accounting system, remember your accounting system should be integrated with eTIMS. So I don't know how many of us have done integration. So, and integration is expensive. We've tried integration. The companies that are doing integration, some are charging even 200,000. I guess those were some of the public participation issues. I hope some of us were able to raise. The integration cost is so high, and there is also the renewal fee per year. So I felt if you're giving us a system to collect taxes, don't charge us for that system. So this also means that for me, I see this one affecting especially people who have a lot of turnover. So if you're a manufacturing company, multinational, distributor, wholesaler, and you're doing a lot of transaction, KRA can come and demand that you integrate your system. Of course, the moment you integrate your system with eTIMS, they are able to view your data on real-time basis. So they will be coming to see how you're using eTIMS on your business. Miscellaneous fees and levies, reduction of export and investment promotional levies. So this is to promote a bit of export. Expansion of items subjected to the levy. A reason the expansion items is likely to align with strategic goals of environmental sustainability and revenue generation. So I'll share with you the notes so that you can go through. I felt it was just important to share, especially the issues that are really affecting us. So for you, take home, especially on the eTIMS new regulations, meaning that is something that is going to be there, and it is here to stay with us. Let me talk about the budget, just a slide. So the budget, how the budget operates, the same way I explained about the finance bill and the major places, how it's working out. The budget also has a way it is made. So around October, November, they share, the ministries share their budgets. And this budget includes their wages, their operational costs, if they want to build some development cost, everything, every single detail. And they go and justify those budgets. And I don't know if they look at the previous budget and expenditure. I don't know what happens, but I think that one is very, very important. So out of there, the committee is able to come up with now the entire budget, and I think it's a very vigorous kind of an activity to push and put everything together. After they do the budget estimate, they look at the collection side. So even the way you do the budgeting in your organization or at home, so you also check on the other side of the money. How do you get the money to fund that budget? So they look at the collection of taxes, and if they can borrow more, both locally and foreign borrowing, if there are grants that they can work it out to be able to fund that budget. So the budget for year 2024, 2025 is a bit expensive, with about 4 trillion, 3.9 trillion. That is the budget estimate. And as you can see there, the different areas of the allocation. When yesterday we were discussing the budget at K24 and the vernacular radio, Kameme FM. You can, by the way, watch them on YouTube. I got to interact with a bit of the politicians and those who know the nitty-gritties. And especially the consolidated fund service, where that one you can see there, it's about 1.2, and meaning those are money that are paid to pay the loans and to pay for pension. These are things that cannot be reduced. It's an obligation that you have to do. Then we come to the expenditure of the ministries, the government, and the recurrent budget plus payment of loans and payment of obligation is above 2 trillion. And I guess that is where I got a bit disturbed. Is above 2 trillion. Yet our collection, the tax collection for the previous year has been at the 2 trillion. Meaning that all the money that is being collected, it is going on recurrent budget and payment of these loans. So when we come to development, we have to borrow for that. So I think let's get to that. For me, I think because for us that are doing business, we concentrate on our business and push with our lives, because if you look at these numbers, you might feel very, very discouraged. Also, the place where they say they want to collect 2.9 billion on taxes, and yet we are collecting about 2.9 trillion, and we are at the collection of 2 trillion, meaning there's already a deficit. And we have now the finance bill that wants to collect about 400 billion. I don't know when will this budget and the money collected match. I don't know where, but I think the people that are doing this can be able to handle and be able to run much better. So I'm going to share you with the notes, and I know some of these things are things that you've seen online with the budget allocation on the different ministries and everything. So I will not talk about those. So I've shared on how the budget was done for different ministries, different sectors, which possibly if you're in that sector, you can be able to benefit. But I want to talk about a bit of the negative: increased public debt. The budget still has a lot of deficit, meaning that there will be a lot of also borrowing to fund it. It was extreme. It was very ambitious. High tax burden. So because last year there was a lot of introduction of taxes. There was a housing levy which was introduced. The pay as you earn tax bands was also introduced. We have so many changes when the fuel VAT was at 8%, so it was doubled to 16%. We also, if we come to individuals, we have NHIF that has been added, and there's a lot of burden that is coming, but because the cost of running the country, the budget is very, very expensive. Inflation pressure, we've also seen a lot of changes in the bank interest rates. So your loans are now more expensive. So there's a lot of strain on the earners. So I guess this is a point where you just, if you're a business owner, this is the time to figure out, what do I do as a business owner for my business to survive? So you look at your costing. This for me, after looking at everything, if you're employed, this is now seeing, how do I survive with the salary that I'm having? Can I get a better job? Someone said, can I do a side hustle? But everything you have to balance everything, because at the end of the day, the cost of living is going to be high, because there's a lot of also VAT and taxes introduced to people who are doing manufacturing, to people who are doing imports. Most of the things we use, some of them are imports. So there's a lot of costs even at the importation level, meaning that whatever you're buying, you're going to be buying it at a more expensive rate, and yet your salary is still at the same point. So this is a space where you say, how do I cut costs? How do I manage the money that I'm getting? And how do you earn more? So the earning more also has to be figured out. For business owners, how do I cut costs is very important. Do you have different loans that you need to consolidate together that are giving you stress? This is the time you do process audit. You invite strategists in your business to look at your business and know how you can survive and grow. By the way, there's something I've seen, because this is June. We are doing a lot of company reviews and looking at financial statement for customers in the last 2 months, and their businesses which are still making profits. So the business which are making profits, what are they doing? So most of those entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs that are able to change. So they are looking at their strategies. They are looking at their processes. They are doing internal controls. They are checking in their systems to just see, how do we manage the business now? Do we need to diversify? Do we need to do cost cutting? Do we need to buy raw materials at a lower price? So this is the point where we don't do business as usual. You have to sit down and look at your business correctly. The other portion is that we are having e-teams that have been introduced for these businesses. E-teams is a game changer on how we are doing business. And knowing that how you're doing business is also being monitored. So even you who is doing e-teams right now know that that data is being collected somewhere. So there's a lot of change. So this is where you bring in experts to help you in your business and to channel that roadmap for growth. Because at the end of the day, you will have a big dream of building a bigger company. So you need to have that portion. So what are some of other trends? So we have the SHIF, the Social Health Insurance Fund, the contribution at 2.7%, 2.75 on your gross salary, and it is starting in the month of July. Remember that July is the time we are also having the finance bill, which will be the Finance Act 2024 being implemented. Implementation time, I've mentioned there. So there will be registrations of the SHIFT membership is expected to be done through various methods, USSD codes. There will be a registration process, and there will be implementation of the new that will be beginning July. So there will be a transition from the NHIF, will be replaced to offer more affordable and accessible healthcare services. So they say that it will come with so many benefits that you can even go to level 6 hospital, you get more services. So we are yet to see, but of course, as a company, this is the time to plan on implementation. Remember, we also had the NSSF changes to Tier 1, Tier 2. And I've also been told that NSSF, you can also pay it in an insurance company. So the insurance companies also have been able to offer NSSF. So you can look for that. By the way, I forgot to put that here. You can see, you can Google it out and share. I'll mention that next month, by the way. So e-teams, there's a lot of changes and issues when it comes to e-teams, especially this month. Yeah, this month from May. So there is a simplification of ITIM's registration process by excluding the filing of the acknowledgement and commitment form. So when you need to register for ITIM, the process has been, it was a very long process and so many documents. It has been simplified, but ITIMS is not working so well. It is having a lot of breakdowns. The USSD code is not working. eCitizen is down. New registrations are not being approved. So I don't know what we shall do on it. So we keep asking, they keep saying we wait. I've been told that the auto population for May is not working. So you can also share on the chat, by the way. May auto populate VAT return. Let me see. Kindly answer me on the chat and ask me another question. I'm almost coming to an end. So you can, are you auto-populating the data so far? So I want to hear the comment. And ITIMS also, are you having challenges with operating ITIMS machine, and especially for people who are doing the code, the the 222 hash, and the eCitizen, the portal one? The people who are doing ITIMS are the ones that bought the machine and the one that downloaded the software on their laptops, and possibly the ones that did integration. But the rest of us are having a challenge. So you can share with me if on the chat what is happening. Let me finalize so that I can read your chat. So remember, the penalty for non-compliant is 1 million, expected to be 2 million. All the businesses are supposed to be onboarded on ITIMS. All expenses and purchases to be invoiced via ITIMS. So make sure that you receive your purchases, the receipts and the supplier's statement, both have ITIMS. So don't accept anything that does not have ITIMS. And these are some of the issues that will be happening next year. And us who are doing, especially people who are doing the USSD, because it's non-VAT. And you don't have to register for VAT for you to do ITIMS. So for you who have been filing NI return and yet you're doing ITIMS, because someone told you for you to do this business, you have to bring ITIMS. So you continue, you do it and you provide and you do. So next year, make sure that you do that business income and recognize that transaction and pay the correct taxes. So we're going to see a lot of audits, especially next year when it comes to ITIMS. The other portion I mentioned prior, and I've said that ITIMS has a stock, it has a stock management area, because how you do it, by the way, on next week on Friday, I'll be mentioning ITIMS. And I'll show some of those issues. I'll show you the stock management. Let me post so that you can come. But there will be a lot of audits on how we are using that ITIMS. So I'll train you next week on Friday on ITIMS and iTax. So amnesty is still ongoing. So we are having about 16 days until that year, the June. I don't know how many of you have been able to enjoy the amnesty. I know you have cash flow issues, so you've not been able to pay your principal amount, but you can push yourself and pay so that you enjoy the amnesty. So next week on Wednesday, we're going to do tax implications in the hospitality industry. So if you're doing hospitality or doing hotel, Airbnb, anything hospitality, you can come and you're going to learn together, and you're going to look at the taxes in the hospitality industry. The next webinar, this will be on 21st, that will be next week on Friday. We'll talk about understanding ITax and eTIMS. I'll give you the nitty-gritties of eTIMS and show you, even when you populate that data, the stock management I said, and many more, so that you get to really learn how it's going to be. We'll be working this out with the DTBX. So I welcome you for that. So let me see what you mentioned on the chat. I don't know why I can't see my chats. Okay. So have you auto-populated the data? Yes. Okay. Let me read a few. So I hope you were able to register so that you can get the notes. There was a registration form. Yes, Neil. Okay. 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 So someone is asking about TOT. Auto-population is not working. Okay, so there's, I can see that is not working. So they mentioned that, I don't know, because of eTIMS and eCitizen, there's something that the system is. I also feel like those systems are working back to back. Like there's a lot of system changes, and I think a lot of system changes might bring to collapse of the system. I think they need to also look at that. So we're going to see, I don't know if have you filed without auto-populating and filed the old way method. So you can tell me. Yes, I can receipt it's keeping popping device information. Okay. The company has teams. Are they required to register for eTIMS? That's a good question. So the difference between teams and eTIMS is one. The teams, you can do you can sell, and you can KRA can see the information that of what you sold, but it doesn't have that point of the stock management. So with the eTIMS, is a point of sale. You're supposed to input all the items you're selling, even the coding, and identify each item that you're selling to a customer. So that is the difference. Teams is operating the way the old ETR was working. The only difference with it is that information is given to KRA on real-time basis. So for me, because Teams was introduced before eTIMS was done, I assumed, because we bought those machines, by the way, the Teams machine, we were buying them, and we got a lot of cost. I think by next year, before the end of the year, they're going to tell us to graduate to eTIMS. So at the moment, you cannot buy a Teams machine. And if that Teams machine fails, you have to get an eTIMS machine. So there's the way they are doing gradually, but they will come to a point and say, we have to, all of us, graduate from Teams to eTIMS if you're still on eTIMS. So, so anyone doing TOT last year, do they need to file new return by end month? So if you're doing TOT, most of the TOT turnover tax is a final tax. But if the company is still registered for corporation tax, do the new return, because you're going to get a penalty if you don't do that. And remember also, when it comes to housing levy is also paid together with TOT. So turnover tax, you do 1.5%. Housing levy, you do 1.5%. So if you're doing rental income, and this was a circular that was issued a month ago. If you're doing rental income tax, that is for the residential property, you do the 7.5% and you pay, you do it by 20th. You also do 1.5% of the affordable housing levy, and you do it before 9th. So make sure that you do that, and that will also bring a lot of audits next year. So if you're not doing that, KRA will come and are you doing rental income and you're not doing the 7.5, the 1.5%, they will charge it. They will charge you on all the amounts that you have declared for the rental income. They will charge you the 1.5%, of course, with penalties and interest. Are you doing TOT? They also come to you and charge you 1.5% of that amount you declared on your TOT. So if you don't want to pay the 1%, if you're doing TOT, then you must have employees that you're paying for them the 1.5%, and also you as a director. Mostly the TOT is done by SMEs, people who are below at $1 million turnover per year. So that either way, you either have the housing levy for your staff and you included as a director. If you don't have that, you do the TOT on the business income. You do the housing levy on the business income. Are NGOs affected with eTIMS? Yes. All businesses should be on eTIMS. Of course, for you, because this is money that you're getting a grant. Remember also your purchases. The purchases that you're going to get and the expenses should be on eTIMS. You should get eTIMS invoices. So you cannot say because my incomes are not are exempted, then no. You still have to have the purchases and the expenses on eTIMS. So we filed, someone said we are filing the old method. So Sylvia, have you filed the old method? I registered eTIMS online. Let me just answer 2 more and then I will call it a day. I registered eTIMS online, but when invoicing my client at tax type, I only saw D option. I did not see 16 option. Even though our company is not VAT registered on iTax. Okay. So this is what you do. You raise a credit note. So you raise a credit note and issue the correct invoice. So you can issue a credit note. If you chose you did a wrong choice, you can do a credit note. So also I will talk more about the eTIMS coming Friday, and we can handle some of those issues. When does the housing levy apply from? You don't apply, you use the rental, you use the pay as you earn. There's a time we did that demonstration. So possibly I can cite it here, and I'll have a slide where I can do a demonstration on how to do housing levy, affordable housing levy. If you're not pay registered, there are people who are not pay registered. It is paid. It is done there at the pay as an agency fee. How? Let me see. Rental income from commercial property is charged VAT, not MRI. MRI is for residential properties. Are TVET's colleges affected by ITIMS? Yes. Yes. Because also your purchases and expenses has to be on ITIMS. Remember, ITIMS has all the categories. It has the exempted, it has the zero rated, and it has the standard rated. So for colleges, you can use it to do your fees, and you use the exempted section. On MRI taxation, kindly comment on service charge fees for running common shared. Monthly rental income for residential properties, Patrick, it is on gross 7.5% on gross rent received that month. So you don't deduct service charge or common areas or anything, or salaries or cleaning. No. 7.5 on gross of rent received that very month. And that gross that you're going to use for MRI, 7.5%, you also do that gross with 1.5% for the affordable housing levy. I've been filing VAT monthly, not housing levy and shift as a sole director and not director employees. At the moment, okay. So for some of the question, my co-host was able to share a calendar booking. I would request that you do a calendar booking. It is free of charge. You can do a calendar booking and we can explain the issues and we can help you out. So the calendar, my co-host, you can share the calendar booking right there. And we can answer some of your questions out of there. So we'll help you manage and understand. So with that, I would want to say, because of time, asanteni sana. On Friday, we're going to have a session where, because it's 2 hours, we're going to have a session where we're going to ask questions. And we're going to learn about ITIMS and ITAX. I'm hoping that you're able to file your return. By the way, if you've not been able to file your return, we can still talk. You can still talk to us. We can help you out. We have a big team that can help you on doing that. So we have so many services, from bookkeeping to taxation to audit to internal controls. You can, when I share the notes with you, you can take a look, and we would love to help you become compliant and being able to understand how to operate in these challenging times. So my name was Regina Kingori, and I'm so happy that you came and joined us today. So you can call us, we have the numbers there, or you can write us an email, and you can say that you want to talk to me. I can talk to you. We can do you, if you have a tax issue, we can help you do, we can represent you even to the tribunal, to the ADR, and to make sure that you get correct assistance. So with that, I say asanteni sana. It's always a pleasure to have you and to have this discussion. I'll share the notes, Jessica. I'll share the notes. By today, you get the notes. So asanteni sana. I can see a few raising their hands. Possibly you can pick our number and you can call. We'll answer. Thank you so much.